Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. Together with Noemi Bantayan and Lorraine Soriano, we're here to report about Module 2, Lesson 1. It is clear that many nations, many businesses, and the people of many countries have benefited from increasing international trade. The countries that have attempted to restrict a wide range of imports in order to protect domestic industries or labor have suffered from more slowly rising standards of living compared with those that have embraced more open trade. So the classical theory, a country exports and imports is determined not by its character in isolation, but in relation to those of its trading partners. The concept economic advantage states that countries tend to specialize in those products in which they have an advantage, namely lower cost of production. This means simply that a country produces for domestic consumption and for export those items that it makes better or more cheaply than other countries. Furthermore, this applies even if countries such as France and Germany, for example, may be able to produce domestically most kinds of products more cheaply than can be produced in foreign countries. Next is the equal advantage. An equal advantage is a condition exists when one country has an absolute advantage over another in production of all products, but not superior advantage in the production of any one product.
Good morning, everyone, especially to you, ma'am. I am Noemi L. Bantayan from Group 1. I am tasked to report the comparative advantage and equal or absolute advantage. Now, let us define first comparative advantage. So, it refers to the ability to produce goods and services at a lower opportunity cost, not necessarily at greater volume or quality. So, it is a key insight that trade will still occur even if one country has an absolute advantage in all products, meaning it has potential benefits that has been forfeited. Like for example, if one country is skilled of making both cheese and chocolate, they may determine how much labor goes into producing each good. So if it takes 1 hour of labor to produce 10 units of cheese and 1 labor to produce 20 units of chocolate, then this country has comparative advantage in making chocolate. So, mas prefer sa lahat to make chocolate for selling. So, because the higher company has higher opportunity cost, the higher potential benefit was gain profit. Now, let's proceed to equal or absolute advantage. So, in economic concept, that is used to refer to a party's superior production capability. So, it looks at the efficiency of producing a single product, meaning the country must produce goods and services most efficiently. So, example is, if Japan and Italy can both produce automobiles, but Italy can produce sports cars of a higher quality and at a faster rate with greater profit, then Italy is said to have an absolute advantage in that particular advantage. So meaning, if which country has produced the good quality, so mauto ang ilang basihan to sale. And also, it depends on their production capabilities. So, the differences between comparative advantage and absolute advantage is that comparative advantage introduces the concept of opportunity cost, a factor for analysis in choosing between different options for productions, while the absolute advantage, it refers to the superior production capabilities of one entity versus another in a single area. So depending on the things that they are capable of.
So before we proceed to the next topic, Let me introduce myself first. I am Lorraine Saliano, and my topic is all about the factor proportion theory and the product life cycle theory of international trade. International trade is a transfer of capital, goods, and services across international borders or territories to meet a demand for a lot of goods or services. In most countries, such commerce accounts for a major proportion of the country's GDP. International trade theories are basically many explanations for international trade. Trade is the concept of two people or entities exchanging goods and services. The concept of international trade is thus defined as the exchange of goods and services between persons or entities from two separate countries. In recent decades, economists have concentrated on attempting to comprehend and explain these trade patterns, consequently understanding how countries interacted with one another historically is critical to understanding how modern global commerce has evolved. Economists have produced models to explain global trade systems across time. So the most important historical ideas are known as classical and are based on a country's perspective. By the mid-19th century, the theories have shifted to explain trade from the standpoint of a corporation rather than a country. These theories are known as modern theories and are firm or company-based. Each classical and modern theories are represented in both of these groups. The classical trade theories versus the factor proportion theory. So the classical trade theory argued that the basis for trade stems from differences in international production, conditions, and factor productivities owing to domestic differences in localization advantages. Explain what causes discrepancies in comparative costs. While the factor proportion theory offers an explanation for the differences in comparative costs among trading partners, states that international differences in supply conditions explain much of international trade. Assume that trading partners have the same taste and preferences. Use factors of productions that are of uniform equity as well as uses the same technology. The productivity or efficiency of a given resource unit is thus identical for both trading nations. About the factor proportion theory, it argues that relative price levels differ among countries because they have different relative endowments of factors of production and different commodities require that the factor inputs be used with differing intensities in their production. It can be formulated as follows. First, a nation will export products for which a large amount of the relatively abundant input is used. Then it will import a product in the production of which the relatively scarce input is used. Second is the pattern relies on the uneven distribution of world resources among nations since products require different proportion of the factors of production. A product life cycle includes three distinct stages, according to the theory, which originated in the field of marketing. First is new product, second is maturing product, and third is standardized product. So the notion believed that the new product would be manufactured entirely in the country where it was invented. This was a valuable notion in the 1960s for explaining the United States manufacturing process. Following World War II, U.S. manufacturing became the world's main producer in the numerous areas. So the introduction stage of the trade cycle is when an innovator company establishes a technological breakthrough in the production of a manufactured item. The country where the innovating company is located initially has an international technological gap in its favor and is typically a high-income developed economy. So the product life cycle hypothesis has struggled to describe modern trade trends including global innovation and production. Global corporations, for example, do research and development in developing countries where highly skilled people and facilities are typically less expensive, even while R&D is traditionally linked with the first or new product stage and thus finished in the home nation. Developing or emerging market countries like India and China provide both highly skilled labor and new research facilities at a significant cost advantage for global corporations. So that would be all. Thank you for listening and watching.